Thank you, Your Honor. And Ms. Gibb, sometimes we've had a hard time picking up the witnesses, so the court reporter may instruct you or tell you if she's having a hard time hearing you, okay? Would you please state your name for the record?
Melanie Gibb.
Ms. Gibb, do you know an individual named Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How do you know her?
I met her in Arizona at a church event.
Do you recall approximately when you met her?
October 2018.
And when you met her at that event, did the two of you end up forming a friendship?
Yes.
Do you know an individual named Chad Daybell?
Yes.
And how do you know him?
I met him at some of different events that I've been to.
Do you recall approximately when you would have met Mr. Daybell?
I think I met him maybe a year or two before I met Lori.
When you first met Mr. Daybell, did the two of you strike up a friendship at that time?
Just a casual introduction to each other.
After your first meeting with Mr. Daybell, did the two of you stay in contact?
Whenever we would see, it was very periodically. It was not like we communicated, as friends or anything. If we engaged, seeing each other, we might say a few words to each other, but not a whole lot of contact.
And after you first met Lori, did the two of you continue communicating from that first meeting?
Yes.
Did you stay in constant contact or consistent contact?
Yes.
Have you ever met or did you ever meet an individual named Tylee Ryan?
Yes.
And where did you meet her?
I met her at Lori's house.
Do you recall approximately when that would have been?
I would say within a week or two after I met Lori.
Did you ever observe Lori and Tylee together?
Yes.
What were you able to observe about their interactions?
She seemed upset and frustrated with Lori pretty much most of the time.
So, and when you say she, you're referring to Tylee?
Tylee, correct.
Did there appear to be some tension in that relationship?
Yes.
Did you ever meet an individual named J.J. Vallow?
I did.
Yes. And where would you have met him, if you recall?
Same place, Lori's house.
Do you recall approximately when you would have met him?
Within a week or two after meeting her.
Did you have occasion to observe Lori and JJ's interactions with each other?
I did.
And what observations were you able to make of those interactions?
So sometimes I would watch her with him, and she was very affectionate and loving to him. I watched her sing a song to him as she was going to put him to bed. She seemed to care a lot about him. And other times, as I got to know her as time went on, he seemed to, frustrated, and so the connection, maybe wasn't as, I didn't see them interacting as much the same way. She was distracted a lot, so I don't know how to explain it very well, but it was, she was just trying to help him, trying to settle down or whatever, but
from your observations, JJ and Lori appeared to interact more when you had first met JJ.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And it seems like those interactions declined over time.
I would say a little bit. But.
And I think you indicated from your observations, Lori was busy with some other things, or?
Yeah, she was distracted a lot.
Distracted. After first meeting Lori, we've talked about that you stayed in contact with her. How often would the two of you see each other?
Sometimes it was daily or several times a week in the beginning, just in the very beginning, yeah.
And when you say in the very beginning, do you recall approximately how long the two of you would interact that frequently?
I would say until January, and then when she started moving, then I didn't see her as much or talk to her as much.
And when you say January, do you recall what year that would have been?
2019.
Did you and Lori live fairly close to each other?
I would say within 25 minutes from each other.
And did the two of you talked about you'd get together. Mm-hmm. Did you also speak to her over the phone during those times?
Correct.
Did you also message with her, text message or otherwise?
Yes.
Instruct you again, if you could just wait until the question is completed before you answer, and I understand it needs to be there. It's just easier for it's just a back exchange, so thank you.
And you indicated, I think, that after she started moving, could you explain what was going on there?
So about January, she decided to leave, and I believe she first went to Alex's house, or maybe Hawaii. They kind of were near the same timing, so she decided to leave and stay with him, and then she went to Hawaii, and then eventually she went to Texas. So she went to three different places, and then she finally went back to Arizona at the very end as her stay that I knew her in Arizona.
Do you know, you indicated she'd traveled around starting in January. Do you recall when you say at the end, approximately when the end was that she ended up, what time period she was moving around?
So January, February, March, April, May, and then July. I know she was back when Charles was killed in July, so I know she was back in Arizona by July. So all the way from January to July, she moved around several times.
And while she was moving around, did you stay in contact with her?
Yes.
Was that frequent contact? Do you recall approximately how often you'd speak with her or text with her?
It was inconsistent, but it was pretty frequent at the same time. So it wasn't like a consistent daily basis, but it was often.
And after meeting Lori, you indicated you met her in October of 2018. Did the two of you end up taking a trip to Utah?
Yes.
And who else went with you?
There was, I don't know, about 5 or 6 ladies. I can't recall their names right now.
And that's just fine, just what you can recall.
I can't recall their names.
So there were 5 or 6 ladies that went to Utah together.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where did you go in Utah?
We went to St. George, Utah.
And what were you headed there for? Was there a reason?
There was a conference there.
And do you recall if Chad Daybell was also at that conference?
He was.
Did you observe a meeting between Chad and Lori?
Yes.
Do you know, had they ever met before?
No.
Were you there when they first met?
I believe so. I was there with her the whole time. Mm-hmm.
Did they, how long was the conference that you were at?
It was the weekend, so it was like a Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday most people went home. So it was that weekend.
And do you recall if Chad Daybell was there for the entirety of the conference?
He was there Friday and Saturday.
Were you and Lori there Friday and Saturday as well?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I mean, we were in the area till Sunday. We stayed at somebody's home. But the conference was Friday and Saturday. And it could have been a Sunday evening, but I can't recall that right now. But he was gone by, if I remember, he was gone by Sunday morning or Saturday night, something like that.
Were you able to observe Lori and Chad together throughout the time that they were both there?
Yes.
And what, if any, observations did you make of their interactions?
They were very friendly to each other, very interactive, talking a lot about some of their ideas and beliefs that they had at that time. And so they were, there was definitely attraction in the beginning, right from the beginning. So.
And did you specifically observe any of Lori's actions towards Chad or how her demeanor appeared?
She seemed very interested in him, like someone that would meet somebody they're attracted to. She seemed flattered by him and very enticed by the conversation and, flirty-like. I would say a little flirty-like. as well.
And do you know what Chad Daybell did for a living?
He was an author and a publisher and also a sexton.
And had you ever read any of his books?
I have.
Do you know if Miss Vallow Daybell had read any of his books?
She had.
And do you know if she'd read those books prior to meeting him?
She only read, I think, just a few, but she hadn't read all of his books. And I don't know if she made the connections yet of who he was with the books. I'm not sure about that.
And you indicated that you saw them speaking and they appeared to have some shared interests?
Correct.
And specifically with some religion, some religious talk?
Correct.
Do you recall if they told you anything regarding the two of them?
Yes.
And what was that?
He expressed to her that he believed that they had been married in multiple probations on this.
I'm going to object as to hearsay, Judge.
Is the response from the state?
Your Honor, it's the statement of a party opponent.
Not this opponent.
It's a statement of a co-conspirator.
Overrule the objection under 1E2E that does allow statements of co-conspirators in furtherance of evidence of a conspiracy. That's how that's allowed in this way. That would indicate, though, that I think there may be some additional foundation for getting further into this issue as to whether those statements are allowed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Gibb, did you have conversations about their first meeting with Chad Daybell?
Have conversations with him? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding.
Did you ever speak to Chad about the first time he met Lori?
Most likely, I just don't remember that exact moment.
So after the first meeting, did you speak to Lori about her meeting Chad?
Correct. Yes.
And when you were speaking with Lori, what, if anything, did she indicate to you that she and Chad had talked about with regard to the two of them?
She shared with me that he told her that they had been married in another time period.
And did she tell you what she believed with regard to that?
She did believe that. She had already had the belief system that this multiple lives, as they would call it, she'd already believed that before she physically met him.
And backing up a little bit to that, how had Miss Vallow Daybell ever told you anything regarding her beliefs about a prior probation or multiple creations?
She wasn't quite clear in her understanding at that point. She felt, and she shared with me, that she had been married to a prophet from the Book of Mormon named Moroni.
And did she share this information with you before she ever met Chad Daybell?
Yes.
After that conference, did you end up staying in contact with Chad Daybell?
Yes, I talked to him, communicated somehow, very periodically, not very often.
And I think you already indicated you and Lori would communicate quite frequently after that.
Correct.
Do you know if Lori and Chad stayed in touch after that conference?
Yes, they did.
And how do you know that?
She would tell me that they talked and how often they talked, and I often saw her on the phone talking to him. Occasionally I could hear his voice, but she'd always indicate to me she was speaking to him.
When they first met, do you know if Lori was married?
Yes,
And who was she married to?
Charles Vallow.
Do you know if Chad was married?
Yes,
And who was he married to?
Tammy Daybell.
Do you know if their spouses were still alive?
They were.
The thing